And let's talk about what happened yesterday. Spurs got battered at St James's Park, 4-0. And as I was watching it, goal one go in, goal two go in, I did get major PTSD from last year. And I was thinking before the game, like, surely that's never going to happen again. And they would use that hurt from last season and take it into this game and really put on a good display. And for the opening stages of the game, I thought that was going to be the case because we did have chances, didn't we? You know, Brennan Johnson playing a lovely ball into Timo Werner blazing it over the bar, and we were opening them up a little bit at the beginning, getting chances. But I mean, as soon as that first goal went in, you could just see heads drop, and it just was nowhere near good enough from anywhere. No one in that team yesterday, from top to bottom, substitute, starting lineup, manager, anyone was at the required levels for a game of Premier League football yesterday.
Yeah, we completely crumbled. I think there's no two ways about it. We completely crumbled when we conceded that first goal. We allowed that Newcastle crowd to get to us. We allowed that Newcastle wave to completely throw us off kilter. And I thought for the first... you know, as you say, 20 minutes or so, I wouldn't say we were phenomenal, but it was a very even game. Obviously, Newcastle were hitting us in behind and looking dangerous, but we were looking dangerous as well. I thought that Newcastle were leaving loads of space in midfield. They were allowing us the ball a lot. I thought Maddison was picking up some really good positions. I thought Werner was buzzing around in interesting spaces. Brennan Johnson, he completely burned for one moment down that right-hand side as well. It looked like he was going to give him a tough ride. And then one long ball over the top. Doggy makes a horrible mistake, and then Romero and Van de Ven completely getting a muddle to deal with Gordon and Isaac, and bam, we're 1-0 down, and then 20 seconds later we're 2-0 down because Porro makes a suicidal back pass, and bam, we're 2-0 down within a minute. And all of a sudden, at that moment, you know, with how Newcastle felt like they were approaching the game, 2-0 down, it was going to be so difficult. It was going to be near impossible to get back in it. So it seemed like as well that Spurs players just heads completely dropped at 2-0. It was like they gave up because Newcastle were approached the game where I wasn't sure how they were going to approach the game when I saw the lineup, but it looked like actually they dropped into a back five off the ball and were being very, very defensive. Murphy was playing wing. Murphy and Byrne were playing wing back with Kraft, Shah, and who else was it in the centre? I can't remember. So it was like Barnes was playing like wing back with like Byrne left centre back.
Yeah, with Murphy and Barnes on wing backs.
Yeah.
And then it was Dan Burn, Shah and Kraft at the centre backs.
And then like Gordon and Isaac as a front two. And they completely did a job on us. And then once you make those mistakes at the back, you give them a 2-goal lead. Like you're pretty much playing into their hands. That's exactly what they're looking for. The game played out exactly how Newcastle wanted it to play out, and we allowed them to do it. And it's just so disappointing and frustrating that literally the first goal was one long ball and they're in behind and in our goal. But let's be honest, those first two goals we conceded, horrible mistakes at the back, horrible individual
Absolutely
errors.
Embarrassing, you know. Destiny Udogie and Pedro Porro, what the hell are they doing? What are they doing? Nowhere near the levels, nowhere near the required levels we need to go to a really hard place to go in Newcastle, where they clearly had a plan for us. You know, Eddie Howe it was a bit of a tactical masterclass from Eddie Howe yesterday, but that doesn't warrant for the performances and the mistakes from a lot of those players yesterday. Destiny Udogie was completely embarrassing for that first goal. Pedro Porro must have had nightmares from when we went to Newcastle last time because he was shocking that day. And he was just as shocking again this time out. He was playing with an injury. Ange said that he felt something in the first half, and he did go off early in that second half as well. But it doesn't give up for what actually happened on that pitch. I mean, I just was looking at it, and I couldn't even watch at times. I thought it was just so embarrassing from everyone involved.
It was so easy for Newcastle to get into our back four, and it was a combination of really poor play in the final third where we couldn't make the ball stick. We were giving the ball away so simply. Weren't playing those risk-taking passes where we were looking to get in behind. We weren't taking those risks. We were playing it very, very safe. And not only were we playing it safe, but when we went to kind of hold the ball in those areas, we were giving up so easily. And then once we gave up in transition, Isaac and Gordon were just in every single time, just one long ball in behind. And it was so easy for Newcastle to get in behind our back line. And it's not the first time that's happened this season. When
one ball, and that was it. One ball, and that's how our defence is completely split open. And how is that good enough?
And I understand, Van der Ven slipped over twice for the opening 2 goals, and he could have done better.
Third as well.
Caught out for the third, but I'm sorry. For the first 2 goals, he's making up for other people's errors. There are 2 massive errors from Udogie and Porro who have put us in the shit, and he's basically scrambling to make up for it. And yes, he slipped over, but I think the focus on Van der Ven is completely unwarranted in those situations. I don't see anyone pointing out Udogie and Porro completely screwing up in those situations. And everyone's, because Van der Ven has slipped at the vital moment to save the day, like he's the one getting the blame for it. I find it ridiculous. All the focus on TNT after the game was, oh, look at what a bad day Van der Ven had, oh, what a shocker he is. Like, he's like completely scrambling around because we've been put under pressure by 2 horrible errors by our teammates. So I feel like the criticism of him is completely unwarranted.
Let's be honest. Mickey Van der Ven has been doing this time and time. Not what he's showed on Newcastle, but he's been making up for people's mistakes at the back time and time again all season, and he's made it look effortless. And this one time he couldn't recover for them. He slips up in 2 vital moments in the space of 2-3 minutes. And yeah, of course it's going to get highlighted on because it's not what he's been showing all season, and it was probably most definitely his worst display of the season. You've got to say that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I think this notion that like he's to blame or anything like that, I think is completely ridiculous. Like, he's the one getting ridiculed, and when I think he's probably the least to blame out of all these goals. You know what I mean? He's like there's all these things that happened before that led to those moments, and then like you've got Van der Ven in a one-on-one situation with Isaac and a one-on-one situation with Gordon. Those aren't situations you should want to be. Any defender probably wants to be in, and they're very difficult situations. And yes, Van der Ven has dealt with a lot of those situations so far this season. Probably not like that though. Most of the time it's when he's running in behind and he's the one getting ahead of them, right? And he's got the pace to get ahead of those through balls. This is a situation where they have the ball and he's facing up with them in a one-on-one situation. That's a different situation, and that's very, very difficult to deal with, especially when you've got Gordon and Isaac, 2 very good dribblers, 2 very good players facing up with you. So I feel like like people focusing on him for those goals is completely missing the point of why those goals happened, in my opinion.
Yeah, look, I do agree with you. But like I said, I do think we have seen Mickey Van der Ven recover and make good challenges from those positions. But, you know, the Newcastle attackers just got the better of him on the day. And I think it was just a culmination of so many different errors. At least with Mickey Van der Ven, he showed a willingness to try and defend, and a willingness to try and get back, and a willingness to try and stop these goals. From the rest of the defenders, it was just completely embarrassing. I mean, I keep going to the word embarrassing. That's exactly what it was on that football pitch yesterday. A super chat here from Eugene Park saying, I completely disagree. That is Van der Ven's job. He is supposed to clean up as the last defender.
I disagree. He's not supposed to. His job isn't to be put under pressure by shit back passes and then be set one-on-one by Isaac and Gordon. His job is, yes, when a ball's played over the top, his job is to get to it first. I completely agree with that. But when he's matched up a one-on-one inside the box with top strikers like Gordon and Isaac, his job is not that. We shouldn't be in that position. Those positions he shouldn't be in. When he's running in behind, right, when there's a ball played over the top and then there's an attacker running onto it and he gets there first, that is what the plan is.
The third goal.
The third goal, probably you could maybe say that's more his fault, I would say, than the other 2, because he should be in a better position than he was in for those goals. He completely allowed Isaac to run off him. I would say for that third goal, I would say he's the most at fault for that one than the first 2. The first 2 is not his fault, in my opinion. He shouldn't be put in that position, and it was a fault of the overall defence in the team that led to him being square on with 2 of the best dribbling attackers in the league. So that's my opinion.
We're letting him be on his own against a class players in Alexander Isak and Anthony Gordon every single time. And it's not good enough from a team level. Like, we need to be playing with each other, backing each other up, and we're just making mistakes in the defence and going, all right, Van der Ven, it's your turn. Just mop up. You can't have
Porro play a back pass straight to Gordon and say it's Van der Ven's fault because he didn't stop Gordon putting it in the back of the net. Like, come on, guys.
Absolutely
it's ridiculous.
Spot on. Look, I completely agree with you, but it just wasn't good from anyone involved. No. And like, after those 2 goals, well, the first one, let's say, like, heads completely dropped, nowhere near the required levels. You're looking at Spurs teams in the past under Jose, under Conte, under all these teams that just let their heads drop after things go wrong in a game and never seem to recover. And that's what I saw yesterday on that football pitch.
Yeah. that Spursiness reared its ugly head. Obviously, we saw signs of it at Fulham not so long ago, and happened again yesterday. 100%. You as well. Second half, right? You think we're 2-0 down against a very depleted Newcastle team. Yes, we haven't had it all our own way in that first half. We made 2 really bad errors. But you're thinking, you get the next goal, we can maybe get back in the game. They're not going to have the substitutes really to change the game. We've got a deep squad. Yeah, in that second half, we were even worse. We were even worse in that second half. We actually created 0.16 XG in that second half, which is a pathetic amount. We didn't lay a glove on Newcastle in that second half, and then again one long ball over the top for Isaac, and it's 3-0, and it's like the easiest goal in the world. Sonny was giving the ball away in such poor areas. He had an absolute mare, and also we didn't touch it yet, but like every bloody set piece they created a chance every single time. I'm pretty sure they had 16 corners. I'm pretty sure from like 15 of them they got to the first ball. It
was absolutely ridiculous. I was watching the set pieces, and I had a keen eye on these set pieces. No one is tracking anyone at any of these set pieces. I'm looking at it, I've been like, you guys have been brought up professional footballers, professional defenders, World Cup winning defenders. Mickey van der Ven, who's like so tall. You've got Destiny Udogie, who's tall and good in the air as well. You've got all these kind of players who have spent their whole life learning how to be a professional footballer and defending, and none of you are tracking your men. I don't understand what is going on. I just don't understand it. And like, we've seen it time and time again, right, over the past few months, or all season really, where we've been poor at defending set pieces. But this one just took the piss. It really did take the piss. About, like you said, 14, 15 corners that we were defending yesterday. They could have scored from about 10 of them.
Yeah, it was a joke. And then they scored from the last one.
We were so lucky that they only scored from that last one. And that last one, when Shah, right, is there anyone around Shah? Anyone? No. And we've seen how many goals Shah has scored over the past 6 months, or however long it's been, 4 or 5 months. He's scored about 5 goals, mainly from set pieces. And not one player is picking him up. Not one player is tracking him. Not one player could be asked to just make a challenge. It's ridiculous.
And I don't want to hear Ange say, because Ange was asked about this last game, or when the last time we conceded from a corner, and he was saying, it's not a big issue. I actually think we've been all right from corners and stuff like that. I think we've dealt with them, and sometimes we create chances from counters from corners and stuff like that, which is true. We actually have been quite good at countering corners, but I'm sorry, if he looks at what happened yesterday, and he doesn't see the problem, and he doesn't see the pattern and how we're defending corners and how vulnerable we are from these corner situations, and how we're just giving up chances for free, and we're not getting to the first header in any of these corners. And not only that, we're giving away so many corners as well. We're giving away 16 corners like we did yesterday, and we're giving basically the opposition free chances at every single corner. If he can't see an issue there, if he thinks that's okay, and that's just how set pieces should be, then that's a serious issue, and he has to take full responsibility for that, because he doesn't have a set piece coach. He has coaches assigned to set pieces at the moment, and going forward, attacking set pieces as well, we don't look dangerous at all. We look so easy to deal with and defend. But the big problem is defensive set pieces. We're a joke. We're an absolute joke. To me, it looks like we're worst in the league, and we can't do anything from these set pieces. It's ridiculous.
And you know what? If that set piece, if that kind of defending from set piece happened in a Sunday league game under 14s, that would be called out on. Mm-hmm. This was happening time and time again, and it's not just this game, right? It's not just this game. It's plenty of games this season, pretty much week in, week out. We're embarrassing from conceding set pieces. I mean, how many goals have we conceded from corners and attacking free kicks this season?
I don't know about this season, but in the last 10 games, we've conceded in 6 of them from corners.
You know what I mean?
So that's a big problem.
It's a joke. And we in the last couple of panel shows, we've brought up topics are we over-reliant on Mickey van der Ven? Well, yesterday showed, of course we are, because, yes, I know he slips at the vital moments, but we're clearly just allowing these mistakes to happen and expecting Mickey van der Ven just to mop up every time. We talk about the need for a set-piece coach. Well, if yesterday didn't highlight that more than anything, then I don't know what will. Like you say, 6 of our last 10 games we've conceded from set pieces. So these things need to be ironed out as soon as possible. We need a better defensive structure as well in these kind of games, because you saw the areas where Newcastle were hurting us, and it was a pretty consistent method of how they were doing it. And in the second half, we didn't address it whatsoever. We just let it fester, let it carry on, and just thought, all right, yeah, maybe we'll just get away with it. But no, we couldn't even lay a glove on them in the other end of the pitch.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we were literally horrendous going forward. We were horrendous at the back. It was an absolute shit show from start to finish. I think Maddison acknowledged that after the game as well. That it wasn't a case of us being unlucky or us just not being in the game. It was just a case of they were better than us and we weren't good enough. That was the reality of what happened yesterday, and it was actually a massive opportunity because we saw the injuries Newcastle had. They're playing bloody Jacob Murphy at right back. You know, they got Kraft playing. They got a midfield free of like Longstaff and Anderson playing, and yet we were the ones who looked like we had 13 injuries, not Newcastle. And it was an absolute shambles.
When I saw the lineups yesterday, when the lineups got released an hour before kickoff, I was licking my lips. I was like, look at this Newcastle team. Surely, if we're ever going to win at St James's Park, this is going to be it with this lineup that Newcastle have. But they completely bullied us in all facets of the pitch yesterday, in every single one. And you're talking about a fully fit Spurs team, pretty much, bar Richarlison. Mm-hmm. Like, I think this is what the second game that we've lost with first choice back four this season. And you're talking about a team going for top four and a team that are mulling it around in mid-table. I know they went, I think, 6th yesterday with that win. But Newcastle were the ones looking like they were going for top four yesterday, and we were the ones looking like that we've been struggling all season trying to get 6th or 7th in some sort of Europa League or Conference League football yesterday. That's what it looked like. And I'm sorry, but I think we've been getting away with it for a few weeks now, and away from home, it's not been consistently as bad as it was yesterday, but we've won 2 games away from home since the beginning of November. Yep. Our away form has been shocking. We've been getting away with it because we're good at home, and we've been getting results at home, and we've been turning around the games at home when we've been 1-0 down in the first half and stuff like that. But you look at our away performances, just on a performance level, like how many of these games can we actually say hand on heart that we've performed well in away from home since the beginning of November? I don't think many.
Yeah, it's I think away has been a big concern. I do think there's a weird thing going on at the moment where there's not been many away wins in the whole Premier League, to be honest. So maybe there's something about home advantage which is taking its toll right now in the Premier League. But our away form, I think it's 2 wins in the last 10. We're 5th overall in away form in the whole Premier League. But if you most of those points actually did come in the opening 10 games of the season. Yeah. And since then, we've really struggled away from home. I think we've only beaten Forest and Villa since October away from home. So there is something about our away form where we can't seem to assert ourselves on the game in the same way. Obviously, away games are harder. That's natural. We know that home advantage is a thing, especially in the Premier League. It's always going to be harder away from home. But we shouldn't be... I mean, I can say we shouldn't be this poor, but that's also part of the process, I guess. So I don't know. Maybe we just have to take it for now, and we have to work on our away form. As long as we're doing very, very well at home, and we've won 8 of the last 9, so that's a big positive at home. But away from home, we can't seem to play the football we want to as consistently or dominate games. But I mean, there's 2 ways of looking at it. You can say that is away games. It's always going to be harder, and that the process is you're not going to be smashing it away from home straight away. That's also going to take time. But on the flip side, we can't just sit here and say 2 wins away from home in the past 10 is good. It's not good. It's not good at all.
And I want to go through these away games as well, because just to highlight how poor we've actually been away. So Newcastle 4-0, obviously probably the worst of the lot. 1-1 away at West Ham a couple of weeks ago. Probably deserved draw. I don't think West Ham deserved to win. I don't think we deserved to win that game. Fulham away 3-0. That was another embarrassment where Fulham completely bullied us throughout that game. Villa 4-0 that we won. I mean, that was kind of the exception to the rule where obviously we were very good that day and Villa weren't at the races. Everton 2, Tottenham 2, Man U 2, Tottenham 2. Both of those were probably deserved draws. Brighton, when we lost 4-2, we got completely embarrassed that day, apart from a late rally. Then we beat Nottingham Forest 2-0 in an okay performance. 3-3 against Man City. I mean, we got away with one that day because in the first half, they could have scored about 5 or 6 goals with the one-on-ones that they were missing and everything like that. And then Wolves, when we lost to Wolves 2-1, that was the first game after we had all those injuries and suspensions and stuff like that. And Wolves, as much as we were winning up until the 90th minute, Wolves were the better team that day and deserved the win. You got to say that. So, I mean, we have had difficult situations where we've been injured a lot and we thought, once all these players are coming back, we'll get back to the levels that we did in the first 10 games, but it just hasn't worked out like that.
No, and there's definitely a concern, especially performances like yesterday. When we have a fully fit squad and we have players on the pitch where there's not really too many excuses to have put in a performance like that, to be honest, to be that bad. Like, I understand, maybe it was an even game, we can lose 2-1, I can understand that, but to be so heavily beaten on all facets of the game yesterday, going forward, defensively, all these kind of things, there's no real excuses. Like, we have a back five yesterday, which was our first choice back five, which has performed very, very well this season. Like, if we're going to have a back five like we did yesterday and we're still going to look as open as we did in that game, then when are we not? You know what I mean? Like, I'm looking at that back five, Porro, Udogie, Van de Ven, Romero, like Vicario. That's probably the back five we're going to be going into next season with. That's probably, I don't see too many chances to upgrade on that for next season. So I don't think you can use the excuse Ange doesn't have his team or anything like that, because he does have his back five that we used yesterday and we're still really, really open. Is it just a case of, the more we learn the process, the more we get in tune with what Ange wants us to do on the pitch, then those things will be ironed out. But, we're now in April. And look, I understand it's still his first season, but still, we're in April. We shouldn't be getting absolutely trounced, I would like to think, like we did yesterday, and especially against a very depleted Newcastle team. So it's definitely a bit concerning. I'm not sitting here saying I'm Ange out or anything like that. Of course not. I'm very, very happy with the direction we're going in. But results like yesterday, performances like yesterday, are a bit of a red flag, I have to say.
Massive red flag. I would caveat it a bit, saying, like, when you look at Arteta, when you look at Pep, when you look at Klopp and their first year, 2 years, they also took some battering. They also conceded a lot of goals. But I think the difference is that they probably didn't have in their first season their starting back four, their starting back five, their starting, they had a lot of changes to make after their first couple of seasons.
Yeah. But what I would say is if I remember rightly, like, a lot of them, had pretty good ends to the season. I built on that for the following season. So look, we still got 6 games left. We'll see how we face this really tough run we've got coming up, and maybe we can still build some momentum going into next season. But at the moment, the especially away from home, the performances are leaving a lot to be desired, and it's going to take an almighty effort now to get into that top 4 after yesterday's result.
Yeah, I mean, Villa do play Arsenal today, so I don't expect Villa to win that today, but to be honest...
No, but that's one of their hard games gone then.
Yeah, it is one of their hard games gone, and if they don't take a battering today at the Emirates, then they'll probably end today in 4th, right? What's the goal difference after yesterday?
I think they're only one ahead.
So look, it's going to be tight from now to the end of the season, but after you put in a performance like that, you have to respond. And our next game is Arsenal at home. And then we go to Liverpool.
Bloody hell.
So it is going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. And I don't mind. Like, I can sit here and accept, like, losing games. But what I can't accept is seeing the heads dropped and seeing the application and seeing what I saw from the players on that pitch yesterday. Even Cuti Romero, like, I saw some we've seen bad traits from Cuti Romero before in kind of teams that get absolutely battered, and him losing his head and him losing his cool and him not putting in maybe 100%. And I think I saw a bit of that creeping into his game yesterday. You definitely saw him at the start of the second half losing his head, putting in those stupid challenges again, and just seeing some bad traits from these players that we have seen in the past, but we thought maybe under Ange that had all gone.
But I guess it takes bit longer to fully get that out of us.
These are your vice captains, right? Sonny's off the pitch. Sonny got taken off. And you've got, I think Romero had the armband or Maddison had the armband. I'm not sure which one had it. Maddison had it. But Romero's the vice captain at that point on the pitch, right? You need your leaders and you need your captains to step up. And I think Maddison was probably our best player on the pitch yesterday, and he was poor.
Yeah, I thought he was our best player for sure. And still didn't have his best game, but I thought he was the only one really when he was getting on the ball, looking to be a bit creative, a bit inventive, and try things. Yeah, and the leadership wasn't there. I mean, the whole team just completely went AWOL. It was really bizarre. As soon as we conceded that first goal, we just completely collapsed. And we've had a tendency in previous years to do that. And it's just a shame that we thought that was coming out this team, and then obviously Fulham. I would say Brighton away at really ugly head, and then didn't really happen again until Fulham, and now it's happened again against Newcastle. So it's very, very frustrating. Doesn't mean that's not something that can be sorted. It is, but I just hate watching that happen. And when you want to watch it happen, you just think about all the previous times where it's happened before.
And history tells us sometimes these things can spiral. And if it spirals now, and we go take a thumping from Arsenal at Tottenham, I fear in the way that what this fan base is going to do and how this fan base is going to react. Because you're telling me that if we get battered to Newcastle, battered to Arsenal, we're not going to get battered at Liverpool as well? Like, if these string of results happen in the space of a couple of weeks,
we never won Chelsea.
I fear what this fan base is going to react like. And me personally, I do think Ange is the right man for the job, and I do think that we can go on an upward trajectory with him, and I think we have shown signs of progress from last season, and I do think we'll show more signs of progress next season. But you can't get away from the fact that these away games at the moment, the Fulham game, the Newcastle game, the Brighton game, we've shown really bad traits in this football team, and I don't know how he sorts it out.
That's something on the agenda for him. Obviously, these are things that are problems, are always going to be things to iron out when you're very early in the job and in your first year. And this is something he's got to combat at the moment. Away from home, we don't seem to be the same team that we are at home, and we don't seem to have the same control in games that we do. But that's all part of the process. But if you can't sort it out, that's going to be a major, major issue. And the fact that it's gone on for a while now is a big problem. The fact that these set pieces has gone on for a while now is a big problem. The fact that we keep getting so easily hit in the transition and that's not being sorted is a problem. Doesn't mean we can't give them the time to try and sort out all these problems, but the issue is that we're seeing it so consistently, there doesn't seem to be any progression on fixing these issues, and that is a big problem, and that is a big concern, and that is something that Ange will have to be accountable for. But I'm willing to give him the time to try and sort it out.
Yeah, so am I. We got no choice, really, do we? But what I want to say as well, all these fans singling out Timo Werner from yesterday. Like, yes, he missed a golden opportunity to put us 1-0 up in the early stages of that first half. And yes, if he did score that, it could have been a completely different game. But having said that, it is only one chance. It is only a couple of moments in the start of the game. And first of all, he gets in the right areas. And yes, he wasn't good enough, Timo Werner, yesterday. But why single out Timo when every single player on that football pitch wasn't good enough yesterday?
Because he was the one getting the positions for the chances, so he's the one that gets to blame because he got in the positions. Like, I didn't see Brennan Johnson getting in those positions, you know what I mean?
Brennan Johnson was the one laying it off for him.
I didn't see Son getting in those positions, but because, they go missing, they don't get the same focus that Timo Werner does. And that, I think
it's unfair.
He deserves his criticism because he missed those chances, but he doesn't deserve the focus of the criticism. A bit like what I said about Van de Ven. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve criticism for what happened. I'm just saying the focus shouldn't be on him. He's not the symptom.
Nobody should be probably having the focus of criticism yesterday, because it was a whole collective. From top to bottom, nobody was good enough yesterday. Yeah, maybe there was some worse than others, but I just don't think anyone put a better than a 3 out of 10 performance yesterday.
Yeah.
And if you go up to Newcastle and put that kind of performance level in, it's only going to end one way. Mm-hmm. Especially when they have top quality player. Alexander Isak, with the form he's on, he's one of the best strikers in the Premier League. Anthony Gordon, he's been brilliant this season. Harvey Barnes come back from injury and he's played well. You know, if you give these players these kind of chances, they're going to eat you alive for fun. And that is exactly what happened yesterday.
Yeah, that front three is one of the best transitional front threes there is. And I think they played a very smart game. They just made sure that they weren't vulnerable at the back, and they knew that if they could get the ball to those players quickly, that we were going to be open, and we're going to have space to exploit. And that's exactly what happened. It's exactly what happened. They played it to perfection, and it was a terrible day at the office for Spurs. I'm hoping to say it's one of those that we just put behind us and forget about and just move on from. But I want to say that about Fulham, and now it's happened again. So that's the biggest red flag.
Yeah. And the thing that hurts me as well, above the application level, is just what we've always prided ourselves on this season, which has stopped at Fulham, which has stopped at Newcastle, is our ability to create chances and our ability to score goals. I mean, before that Fulham game, we went 36 games or something with scoring goals in a row.
Yeah.
Now we've gone to Newcastle and we've gone to Fulham, and we've barely laid a glove on both of these teams and haven't scored a goal. And that as well has got to be alarm bells, because this is what this Ange team is all about, is being able to create those opportunities to score goals on a consistent basis. And now we're starting to see these games where we're creating literally, apart from those few chances in the first 20 minutes of the game, I don't think we created anything.
We didn't. We created 0.7 XG, and 0.6 of it was in the first 20 minutes.
That's it.
So that tells the story about how we were completely stifled. And that's also a massive concern, because you're playing as a depleted Newcastle side and we couldn't even create anything against them. That is really worrying. Like, Newcastle have been a shambles defensively the whole year. Like, they conceded 4 at home to Luton. They lost 3-1 at home to Forest. I know maybe they approach those games a bit differently, but still, they've been a shambles at the back the whole season. And also they've just lost Botman as well, who was fit and available recently, and they've lost a few other players. Trippier's not playing at the moment. Livramento didn't even start. And they're playing this back line, and we couldn't create anything against it. That is something that Ange has got to be massively concerned about. And he's now going to be judged on these big games coming up. Because 60 points, he's going to have to find 10. Well, look, obviously, hopefully we'll get 6 points out of Burnley and Sheffield United, but he's going to have to find points out of Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, and City. He's going to have to find points out of those games if we're going to get top 4 now. It's now not a luxury to get points out of the games. It's now a bit of a necessity, and that's the position we're in.
I tell you the truth, though. I do tell you the truth. In my personal opinion, I know you probably feel differently to this, but I couldn't give a shit about top 4. I really couldn't. I don't think that getting in the top 4 is look, obviously it's a sign of progression because we finished 8th last season, but so is finishing the Europa League is a sign of progression for next season. But this Spurs team going and playing in the Champions League next season, we're going to get eaten alive. Why not be in a competition, first of all, that we can win? I'm not saying I prefer Europa League over Champions League. I'm happy to be in either competition. Obviously, I would slightly prefer to be in the Champions League, but I don't see it as this be-all and end-all and such a successful season because we finish in the top 4. How many times have we finished in the top 4 and we haven't kicked on the next season? I so resonate with these comments that Ange makes time and time again, saying, all I care about is seeing progression year on year. That's all I care about. And if you ask me right here, right now, what would I prefer? Would I prefer to finish in the top 4 or hold Arsenal's title charge and see Arsenal not win the league? 100% I would see Arsenal not win the league. And for me, from now to the end of the season, all I want to see is Arsenal crumble. And yes, I want to see Spurs win as many games as we can from the end of the season. If we do that, we probably will finish in the top 4. But for me, I don't really care that much if we finish in the top 4 or not.
Look, it's not the be-all and end-all, but that's what I want. I want to see us in the Champions League. I think it helps. It does help the progression when you're facing the best, so you can test yourself against the best. I think that's the best measure of where you are as a team. So, and I think being in the Champions League is beneficial. Obviously, the money helps as well. So for me, I do want to get that Champions League spot. Considering we've been flirting with that top 4, being in that top 4 for a lot of the season, would be a bit of a disappointment for me if we were to miss out right at the end, because some poor form. I'm not saying it will be a disaster by any stretch, but it would be disappointing. And I think in years gone by, I remember when under Poch, when we got into the Champions League, that was. I mean, like, it was good for us. Like, going on those Champions League runs, it helped us develop as a team, I felt, when we were playing these kind of good teams. And I agree with Ange. I don't want a player coming just because we're in the Champions League. I agree with all of that. But that would be just a sign of progression that we're getting into the Champions League. That in itself would be a sign of progression. Not that it's an achievement in itself, but it's a sign that we are progressing, and we're going to be a team facing those big teams. The players in the team want to face the best. They want to test themselves against the best. Those are the games they want to be involved in. They're watching those, as Maddison said, he's watching those Champions League quarterfinals. Brilliant games. He's thinking, these are the games I want to be involved in. Those are the games I want. So, for me, if they want it, they need to go and grab it, and that, by going to grab it, they need to get points against Arsenal. They need to get points against Liverpool and City.
It doesn't have to be such a short-term thing, though. You've got to realise where you're at as a football club right now, and I don't think we're good enough to be in the Champions League.
Why not?
Why not?
Are Villa good enough to be, like, if we get in the top 4 or top 5, you're good enough to be in the Champions League?
Good enough to do what in the Champions League? Go
Who
out in
knows?
the last 16.
Who knows?
Group stages.
Who says we're going to be the same team next season as we are this season? You know what I mean?
So if we're not the same team as we are, if we keep progressing, then those Champions League nights and those runs will happen. They will come naturally. Of course they will. I want to be sitting here and being like, I want to go and win trophies. I want to go and be proud of going and see my team week in, week out, and winning consistent games and looking like a proper outfit week in, week out. We're not doing that. And when you're looking at this team,
we're doing it not a better standard than most teams in their first season under a new manager.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And that's why I say that I'm backing Ange. I'm behind Ange. I can see the progression under Ange. But to say, like, a lot of people use this Champions League thing as like a equivalent to a trophy. For me, it's not. And we've been here, we've sat here, we've talked about it so many times. We've made those Champions League, like, since Harry Redknapp, we've made the Champions League how many times? 5, 6 times, something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's never kicked us on. It's never made us think about progression, and it's never made us go on that upward trajectory. If anything, we've rested on our laurels every time we've made Champions League and gone backwards.
Okay, but what's the point, though?
The point of what?
Do we not want Champions League?
It's not that we don't want it, but it's not like some amazing achievement if we do get it.
I'm not saying it's an amazing achievement. I just want it.
Some fans think it is.
I agree, and they shouldn't see it as this be-all and end-all. Getting in the Champions League is like the holy grail. It's not. I want to be in those Champions League nights. I want to see hear that Champions League music at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium next season. Those are the nights I want. Those are the nights I look forward to. There's massive games against massive clubs. I look forward to those things. That's what football is all about, testing yourself against the best. That's what I want for my club. If we miss out, it's not the be-all and end-all. We'll be in the Europa League. It'll be a good opportunity to maybe win a trophy, and we can still progress. I completely agree, but doesn't mean I'm not going to be disappointed if we don't get into that Champions League, and I think we should aim to be getting to that Champions League. We're not winning the league. The next best thing is to get into the Champions League, and that's what we've got to try and achieve this season. And I think to be in your first season at a new club where there's been a lot of challenges, a lot of difficulties, if you end that season getting into Champions League football, I think you've done very well, because there's been a lot of challenges, and in your first season to do that is not many managers have done that in their very first season in charge of a club. So I think
Ten Hag did it. He got Champions League in his first season.
Yeah, and then they didn't kick on.
Exactly.
Okay, but that's them. That doesn't mean we should look at that and think, okay, so we don't want Champions League.
This is what happens at this football club. We make Champions League, and then it just goes, all right, we're good enough to get in the Champions League and just go again next season. Like, we need constant
Under Poch, we got Champions League 5 years in a row, but it did kick us on, getting us in the Champions League.
We got Champions League 5 years in a row, but also it coincided with a lot of the big teams dropping off in that moment in time, and it also coincided. Oh, and Spurs have just scored.
Spurs have just scored looks like a late winner. Wow.
27th minute. Come on,
into the final of the FA Cup.
This is what I want to see.
Ladies.
This is what I want to see.
Mentality.
You know what I mean? This is what the men's team should be doing.
A long throw, I think it was a header from a long throw, and bam, brilliant header. What a goal.
Come on. Anyway, what was I saying?
Who knows?
Oh, God.
Look, I agree with your sentiment. Just because we get in the Champions League doesn't mean we've achieved anything and we shouldn't be resting on laurels. I completely agree with that, but it still doesn't negate the fact for me, I want to be in the Champions League.
Look, I'm not saying I don't want to be in the Champions League. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that I've said it so many times now, but a lot of people think like getting in the Champions League is such an achievement. But what I've been saying is that we've done it so many times, and the key thing for next season is just progression. And if we finish in the Europa League
look at Arsenal when we beat them to Champions League.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That proves my point even more.
No, I agree. I completely agree with that, but doesn't mean we shouldn't be disappointed. Like, they were disappointed they didn't get there. They didn't say, oh, it's fine, we're progressing.
And they kicked on, and we
exactly.
didn't. And we rested on our laurels,
Correct.
and we went backwards.
But they were disappointed. They wanted that to be in the Champions League, and so should we.
Yeah. But it's not the be-all and end-all for progression.
Bit of luck there. But,
and it's not the be-all and end-all for progression, getting in Champions League. And if we get into the Europa League, qualify for the Europa League next season, I will not be mad at it at all. And I think it's a competition that we can realistically win next season.
Agreed.
And not only a competition that we can realistically win, but everyone talks about these youngsters, Jamie Donnelly, Bergvall, and all these kind of players coming through, Sunsot Bell. It's a competition as well that these players should be able to get minutes in as well.
Potentially, potentially. Europa League's getting a better standard, though, recently. So
Group stages.
Maybe group stages, they can get some minutes, but I think Europa League can't take it lightly either. It's a very, very difficult competition.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very, very tough run-in. We'll see how it goes, I guess, in the last few games.
Yeah.
Doesn't get much harder. We're pretty much the hardest run-in.
No game for 2 weeks, but we've got Arsenal at home in 2 weeks' time. So it's hard to be a bit scared from that fixture, to be honest, after what we saw on that pitch yesterday. But that is your match review from the game yesterday.